So I volunteered while I was downrange, and when I got back in March, I went to BIC in August, and I was down at the schoolhouse in Florida by September.
Wowzers. That is one of the few times people will poo-poo instructor gigs, or they used to call it DSD, right? Like, I don't even remember what the acronym stands for. I don't care. But that is one of the few times that you can actually really control what it is that you do. And I used to tell, folks that all the time, especially my younger guys. After my instructor gig, I had a great, I loved the time that I spent at the Pararescue Schoolhouse. I thought it was awesome. The feelings that I had about work were the best, some of the best in my career. Like, I often talk about it as my best assignment, but one of the biggest hooks that I'll tell to guys, it's like, I can't tell you what the career field is going to do with your career. There's so many stories like you. I have a similar one, but it's important not to make the podcast about yourself, so I won't tell that story. But it's one of the few times in your career that you can actually control where it is that you go. You know where the schoolhouse is, you know what the instructor gig is, and you can actually control by volunteering to go be an instructor. And some guys aren't aware of that benefit because they have this view of what the schoolhouse is or how they felt about it when they were a student or all these other things. And I used to tell guys, I'm like, listen, if you really want to control where you're going to be for the next 4 years, it's a crapshoot, literally, with everything else. There are chiefs that have inputs and there's spreadsheets that have little red boxes on them. And sometimes those red boxes are in Clovis, New Mexico at the 26 STS. I can't guarantee you that you're not going to go to an assignment that you have no desire to go do. But I can tell you for sure, if you want to go ahead and go give back to these young kids that are going through, just like you needed those instructors, and especially in your distinct experience, this is another thing that I was talking about. When I went through the Pararescue Schoolhouse, there really weren't that many dudes with deployments. That was late 2007, early 2008. That was a 4-year assignment. You back it up. Those guys got there in 2004. The likelihood that they caught one of those early deployments, talking 2000, late 2002, 2003, 2000, early 2004, before it is that they got to the schoolhouse, that was not a likely thing. So the instructors that I talked to, we had 1 or 2 that had kind of like cycled in that could tell you what it was like to even fly the missions at that time. But you going to the schoolhouse, making that own decision, you had the benefit of being able to look at your students and go, no, bro, this is the way that it is. I deployed as a ROMAC. I deployed as a JTAC. I deployed to multiple different areas with all of these different teams. Let me tell you what's really happening, and that's super valuable.
Yeah, not a lot of my instructors, when I went through, had combat time. We had a few. Deaver was there at the time as a tech sergeant before he went security forces and then came back. He actually just retired, I think, last week. He was there. Charlie Keebaugh was there. He had come off a deployment with the Rangers. But all my other instructors, I don't remember any of them really having deployments. And it's one of those things where, like, you're looking for this experience, like you expect it, because we've been at war since 2001. But an instructor tour is 4 years.
Right.
So if I show up in 2004, well, all of the new guys are going to have that instruction or have that experience to provide the instruction of, like, hey, this is what's really going on downrange. This is it. Now, by the time I got there in 2010, like, Jared Taylor was there with me. Like, we'd both been at Bragg together. So we had all this wealth of knowledge and experience. But what I will say, and what I learned, was sometimes, I'm calling myself out here, sometimes good JTACs or operators don't make good instructors.
That's true. 100%.
And you have to learn that. And for me, it was a humbling experience, how I learned it. But it involves a little piece of paper called an LOC.
You've been counseled before. Listen,
another growth opportunity.
Yeah, LOCs, it's a little bit different for officers. And I used to tell my officers that, like, we'd be walking into a meeting and I'd be like, who gets to say the mean thing? And they'd say, you, Aaron. And I'm like, why is that? And they're like, well, because an LOC or an LOR for you'll just laugh about and sign, but they'll fire me for it and it'll end my career. I'm like, yeah, I've been counseled before. So
yeah, so that happened, which wasn't my first time, because we got in trouble because somebody, apparently, I'll tell this story real quick because we all got in trouble for it. There was an intel squadron that was digging around in merc chats downrange, and our merc chats were wild.
Yeah.
And apparently they were briefing them in their morning briefings, like, funniest merc of the day, here it is. Well, that, of course, was funny. They thought it was hilarious. But that went this way to the next highest person that said, oh, by the way, we have a book on merc chats, and we're now going to hammer you for it.
Oh, so, no.
our leadership got we'll say a stern talking to.
Yeah.
And then that of course rolled downhill. They're like, hey, just DSS us or make sure we're secure before posting anything fun anymore in these chats. We did. But yeah, like, I mean, paperwork's paperwork. Like, you can use it as a learning opportunity, or you can just, butt heads and say, I don't care. But for me, it was legit LLC, and I was like, okay,
right, yeah, I actually did something wrong here, so let me learn from this.
I understand.
Right.
And then, got through that, came to their side, and then I matured and developed into a pretty good instructor, which is another story about how I try to go to selection again.